I think that all of us recognize that there's a consensus around the state that the key structures of our government need fixing. We were charged by the leaders of the respective houses with drilling down on some really key issues. Giving Californians more value for their tax dollars by making government more efficient and accountable. Requiring government to prioritize key issues so that we make the toughest decisions in the state and don't pass the buck. You know, cutting through the gridlock here of outmoded rules and sometimes undue partisanship. Making government more transparent and accessible. Diminishing the influence of special interests. Making government more customer-friendly. And encouraging decision-making that reflects long-term thinking, not just Band-Aids for the short term. I share Mr. DeSaulnier's enthusiasm for this process, and he and I have discussed privately our optimism about how much we could potentially achieve if we work together here. It's an ambitious agenda for us, and I think everyone here feels the same urgency that we do. We don't have time to waste. So let me go right to the process broadly for the next few months and just concisely say that this is the first of 5 hearings. We're purposely holding these hearings throughout the state of California to make this process as accessible to our constituents as we can and encourage their involvement. The success of this project is going to boil down to one thing, and that's concrete results. Ideally, after we go through these 5 hearings, in January we'll emerge with a series of proposals that can be memorialized in rule changes, in statutory changes, and in ballot measures that we can agree to put before the voters. Concrete, specific, tangible results that reflect as much consensus as we can muster here. That's the measure of our success. Clearly, there are going to be some differences of opinion here. And that's okay, because our constituents expect us to express our core values. But at the end of the day, much of what we can engage in this process can be done by consensus. I'm convinced of that, and we'll see evidence of that as soon as today, I'm sure, because we'll discuss legislation that reflects interests on both sides of the aisle. We have been talking about a bunch of ideas around which there is meaningful consensus. What will happen following today is there'll be an effort to reduce to writing what appear to be the number of things where there's some potential common ground. That will circulate among all the members between now and the next hearing we have, asking members to put flesh on some of the ideas from their perspectives, perhaps add others. And ideally, that document will simply continue to grow as we go through this process. We can sort of see where people stand on issues, trying to synthesize the best of and come up with some conclusions that are very specific. The next hearing we have is going to be on the initiative process, and that's going to be in Mr. DeSaulnier's territory in the Bay Area. I think we're going to have another opportunity to display how much potential for common ground there really is. I think there's a great deal on that point. I want to say a couple more words and be done. First, my perspective on the relationship between this process and the various outside groups who have ideas circulating, of which there are a number, right? There are the proponents of a constitutional convention. There are proponents of a part-time legislature. There's California Forward. There are others out there with ideas about what kind of reform ought to happen. My view is that no matter how many outside groups there are, it's incumbent on those of us who are here as a legislature to rise to the challenge of leading. This is a moment when, people are talking about our popularity and so forth. All that is tied to one thing to me, and that is, are we perceived as taking an assertive role in tackling our state's big problems, or are we abdicating responsibility to third parties? I'm sure that today's hearing displays the common sense around this table that no one here is interested in abdicating. Everybody here is interested in leading. So I view us as setting an agenda, allowing other people to participate. There's a lot of practical issues about timing and who's going to propose initiatives and so forth. But we are going to come in January with a bunch of ideas that will be memorialized in rule changes, legislation, and constitutional amendment. That is clear from today.